So it goes without saying that November 2025 has been a super important, super intense month on the political level. There's no question about it. First, we had a really important election, which was very good for Democrats. This was followed by the end of the shutdown, which led to all kinds of arguments and accusations and negativity. And now we have the explosion or re-explosion of the Epstein issue. And my feeling is there's more to come because the situation is very dynamic. And here I want to focus most specifically on where the Democratic Party is, including, I have to say, some of my criticism around the way Democrats have a way of hurting themselves unnecessarily at times. Because I remember when, just days ago, as the shutdown was ending, quite a number of people that I really respect, intelligent individuals who make for great commentary, lots and lots of insight, and yet they were totally enraged about the fact that Democrats had folded. They should have hung in there. We had leverage. This was a bad move. We're always doing this. Now we have no negotiation power, blah, 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 including, by the way, Gavin Newsom, who I think is a very viable presidential candidate for 2028, and pretty much everything he's done to prepare himself seems logical, seems strong, but he came out right away criticizing the Democrats, the Senate Democrats, for doing what they did. And yet, based on what just happened today, it might cross your mind. You might think, well, I wonder if maybe this was one of the key factors they were focusing on, because once you reopen the government, then things start to roll on this front, which is a very advantageous front, obviously. It was sitting in the background brewing, and then now here we are. That's one thing. But the other part of this is that you have to be realistic. Just like Republicans have all kinds of problems managing their people, Johnson is constantly, herding the sheep or herding the cats, whatever metaphor you want to use, whatever analogy, because different people think in different ways. And when you're talking about in the Senate 50, in the House even more, you can't control everybody. And so it is known that Democrats, centrist Democrats, were not in favor of doing this. They wanted to keep it on a different level. They went along with it because the majority was doing it, but they were not happy with taking the approach of keeping the government shut down for too long. And so in that sense, there wasn't much that Chuck Schumer could do, because they can vote however they want. And so that's that angle. If you are a little more conspiratorial and you say, well, maybe Chuck Schumer and other Democrats are in on it because these people give them a cover, well, whatever. I mean, that could also be true. But the point is that the Democrats made their point. They highlighted the healthcare problems for a significant period of time. This is a true, very, very true factor, very, very true arena that we're currently in, which means people know what this is about. Millions of people know that we're not making things up, that healthcare will go up very substantially. And so this needs to be brought into the foreground. And we know that Republicans not only have no plan to fix it, they're always saying, we're going to fix it in 2 weeks. They never do. And they have no interest in that. Their interest is in funneling money upward to the rich. But now it's in the foreground, right? Number one. Number two would be that, if you think about it, the government needed to be reopened because even more people, we're talking now about maybe 50 million, were being badly hurt through not being paid in many cases, or SNAP benefits, that's to the tune of 40 million plus. So you have to balance those things out. And, Trump was perfectly happy to let people starve. He doesn't care. He'll make his point any which way. It's just torch everything down, burn it all down. Who cares? That's the way he operates. So in that sense, I think it's part of the positive democratic playbook. And now especially that we're seeing one of the effects, which is this Epstein thing bubbling up, literally exploding, more like. Now we see that maybe the election isn't looking as bad as it did 2 or 3 days ago, because people were already saying, the election, what does that mean? Who cares? Now we'll never have healthcare. Well, we'll see about that, because healthcare is in the foreground, and for the Republicans to do nothing about this, and in the near term let it go into what is going to be another shutdown in January if they do nothing at all to take care of those subsidies for Obamacare, then we're still in the fight. This is still going to be brought up again. And to the extent that they say, we don't care, we're just not going to do anything about this, well, then they go into the 2026 elections with a major problem on their hands, because millions and millions of people are going to be upset. And remember, many of these people are their own constituents. It's not just Democrats. It's all encompassing. Which therefore makes it very, very threatening. There's no doubt about that. And so I think we as Democrats are in a pretty good place right now. It's really good when you consider that they don't have too many options. And when you add on to that, you've got a crew of mostly very incompetent people, you're guaranteed that there will be more problems they'll generate as we go into next year, although admittedly that's at everyone's cost. To say to you that RFK is likely to step on it somehow and produce some kind of health crisis, well, that's a little scary. And so who wants to go through that? That's, in this case, the adage is it's the cost of doing business, it's the cost of the politics we're in. To get rid of this virus that we're dealing with, we have to go through this problem. But to me, the landscape looks quite good in terms of our possibilities. I know that there are people that will say, none of that matters because they'll just rig the election. Well, maybe, but it seems a bit strange that they're so focused on redistricting the hell out of everything. They're trying everywhere to redistrict, but here's where Democrats have been strong as well. For a party that is often accused of being weak, they seem to be doing the same thing. And from what I've been researching, it's going to be pretty even. There's no guarantee at all that anything they're trying to do to redistrict will help them. And if they could just rig it outright, why bother going through all that trouble, right? The final thing I'll say is that back to the leaders that we have and people's dissatisfaction, in particular, Schumer is taking a lot of the heat. The reason for that is because he's a Sagittarius, and right now the Saturn station is in Pisces. That square Sagittarius. It's never going to be all that favorable. And by the way, I'm not saying that we shouldn't replace Schumer with someone new. It's probably true, or maybe it's totally true, that soon that is likely to happen anyway. I mean, he is getting older, and it's true that changing the guard would be good. But when you're looking at it in the near term, his astrology right now is complicated because of that square. But you have to realize that next year, Saturn in Aries, and especially Jupiter in Leo, which is what happens in the summer, is much more favorable for Schumer because he's a Sagittarius. Aries trines Sagittarius, and so does Leo. So you get a trine, which is very helpful. Same for Hakeem Jeffries, who's a Leo. Jupiter will be going through his sun. This is why I remember doing videos late last year, trying to encourage people by saying, look, the 26 elections look so much better for Jeffries and for Schumer than the situation looks now, because that's when they had lost power, basically, right? So even if at some point after that, Schumer finally retires, in the near term, this is what we have. This is the person leading. And I don't think it's as terrible as people say. I think that overall, our situation is pretty good. And once again, I'll say, we just got to stay in there. Let's just think of it as we're in the game, we're competing. There's no doubt about it. And particularly when I look at the patterns in 2026, including most especially around election time, absolutely, Trumpism at election time in 2026 is in a lot of trouble.